Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Cosmopolite Collective. Thank you so much for joining us again. I am your co-host, Sophia De Martino, and I am joined by
Diana Lauritson.
And Eryka Gosselin.
All right, and we are here today, ladies, to talk about a girls' trip that the two of you went on.
Yes.
Often the trips that you go on are sort of an extravaganza. You don't just go one place, and this is no different. So on this trip that we're going to be talking about today, you two went to Europe and went to Prague, Vienna, Budapest, Bratislava, and Reykjavik, right?
Yes. Because we had to fit 5 countries in there.
I'm not going to say that they're like, but these are places that are sort of off the beaten path of your run of the mill touristy places. How did you land on these countries?
So I had wanted to I've been to Budapest once before, and I had heard of people that had gone to Budapest. I think they call it some kind of triangle or something, but people that go to like Vienna and Budapest and will go to some other city. And you can access all of them by train. And so I've wanted to go to Prague for a long time. I wanted to go back to Budapest. And so I had kind of thought of a few cities that I wanted to go to on the trip. And Iceland was kind of an outlier. It was one of those things where we ended up finding a cheap ticket on going.com. And so we found a cheap ticket to Iceland because those of you who have flown Iceland Air know that when you fly Iceland Air, you can do a layover in Reykjavik, and they either on your way going to where your destination is or your way coming back, you can stay up to 7 days in Reykjavik without having to pay extra. And so it's obviously an incentive for Iceland Air to be able to get people to come visit Iceland. And so I thought, well, if we're going to go with Iceland Air, we might as well have a stopover in Reykjavik. But the Bratislava was all Eryka. We initially were going to go to Krakow, Poland, and then it didn't turn out that way. So Eryka, why don't you tell us how you found Bratislava?
Yeah, so we did want to go to Poland, but when we were looking at logistics for trains, it was too far out of the way from Budapest, going back up to Prague, where our departing flight was. So I stumbled upon Bratislava. Did a quick TikTok research um, to see what it looked like and what was out there. And it was literally on the way from Budapest back to Prague. So we stayed there for a night, and it was pretty
Yeah.
amazing. And I wanted to go to Prague because my cousin did a study abroad there and had so many good things to say. So wanted to see it for myself.
So you did a quick free plug for going.com if everybody didn't write that down. Free cheap tickets on
hmm
going.com. When you're going overseas and your plans kind of change like that, is it something where you booked and planned all of your hotels in advance and did your research on those as well, or did you kind of check it out once you got there and figure out where you wanted to be?
We did not plan all of our hotels in advance. I've done it multiple ways over the years. This trip, we literally booked the plane tickets, and we knew that we were coming in and out of Prague, but we didn't have plane tickets booked for any of the other destinations. So we actually booked train tickets literally while we were on our trip. We were like, okay, we're going to spend a few nights in Prague, and then we're going to go to Vienna, and we'll just book our train ticket because it's so foreign to us in the US, but it's so easy to travel by train in Europe that you can
Hmm.
literally just book your train tickets
Same day,
same day, not an issue.
hour before, you
Yes,
know.
super easy. For hotels, we waited until, I mean, it was very close to when our trip started that we actually booked the hotels. And we
Mhm.
found, I mean, different reasons why. We researched some of them. Obviously we looked them up just to kind of see how close they were to like the city center, things like that. But we mostly winged it on this trip. And
Yeah.
our hotel choices kind of reflect that a little bit because some of the hotels, they were all fine. They all did their job. Some of them I probably wouldn't book again. And interestingly enough, our favorite hotel was actually in Bratislava. It was the
Hmm.
best hotel.
It was so
So
beautiful.
nice, so plush, all the amenities, everything.
Hmm.
They even had a smoking room for the smokers. they had they had
Which is unheard of
oh
here at this
yeah,
point.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like where you can smoke cigars, cigarettes, whatever. But they
Hmm.
also had different bars, restaurant, and it was just the amenities in that hotel were really nice and we were really kind of bummed that we only had one night there.
Hmm. I wish it was more than one because
Yes.
they had like a shower with a tub. The hotel room was huge.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We've
it was
got
just
photos of the
it was a
hotel
great
room.
spot.
And
Yeah.
after some of the hotels that we stayed in, we were just kind of like, wow, I wish we would
Yeah.
have done our due diligence better at some of the other places. Not to say that we didn't stay at some good hotels, because we did, but
Hmm. You definitely did.
Bratislava definitely stands out.
Did you both decide on the hotels together, or did one person pick one and then the next person pick? How'd you do that?
Yeah, we kind of like did our own thing.
Yeah.
We kind of like, yeah, like I think for some of mine, I sent Diana like a list of like 4 or 5 that I picked out and like let her
Hmm.
choose or
Got
something
it.
like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's always so I mean, I get like anxiety picking a restaurant and hoping everybody's going to like it.
Oh,
So I can't
really?
imagine, this is our massive overseas trip, don't screw it up. Um, lay the scene for me. Like, you guys travel all year round. What time of year was this?
End of
This is
September.
summer,
No, end
right?
of August, beginning of September.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And what was the weather like there?
Yeah, in fact, some of the places in
Yeah.
Budapest, it was really warm. I
Really
remember
hot.
one day just thinking, because I'm one of those people that tan really easily. So if
Yeah.
I wear sunglasses, I will have like raccoon eyes because I
Oh,
tan so easily. And I remember Budapest being so hot.
Hmm.
But there were definitely rainy days while we were out there.
Yeah.
The one thing I liked though is that we went at the end of August because, as many people know, tourist season in Europe is really July and August. And so, us coming at the end of August, we didn't quite hit the mass crowds as much as we would have had we even traveled a few weeks earlier.
so that's kind of a hack. Hit it up in September, miss the rush, but still have the warm weather. Maybe oppressive heat just for one
Yep,
day. It'll be
yep,
fine.
exactly.
Wasn't too bad.
So tell me about your most memorable experience in Budapest.
I'll
Ooh,
go
go
first.
for it.
I think for me, Budapest, the castle, that I think that was the most memorable for me. Um, just the views,
Mm,
it by itself is just phenomenal. And I love photography, so I was all about it. And also, I think when we went downstairs, so Budapest Budapest Castle has like this walking like where you could like you're like walking on a cliff kind of and you can see for miles and then if you go downstairs there was this little restaurant. We were so hungry
hmm.
and thirsty by that point and it was the cutest spot and it had really great food.
Hmm.
It was something like the monkey. I'll have to remember
Yeah.
what that was, but it was such a cute spot. We didn't get to go through the castle itself as much as we wanted to. It's more of a museum. And, we already spent a lot of time walking by that point, so we're kind of ready to
Lots of
go, but
stairs.
uh, lots, so many stairs, very few elevators, FYI, so come prepared. But yeah, I think that was probably the most memorable for me.
I think
How about you, D?
I think for me in Budapest, I actually really loved the thermal baths that we went to.
Hmm.
So I don't know how I missed this my first visit to Budapest, but they have these thermal baths and we'll show pictures on the YouTube version, but they are amazing. You just go, they've got all kinds of different baths inside And then if you go outdoors, they've got these pools of water and they're different degrees. Like they will tell you what the temperature is. Like they've got this sign that shows you what the temperature is and these little, things that spray out water. But it's just really cool being in these thermal baths that's surrounded by this like palace type structure. And
So for the layperson, is that like hot springs?
yes, kind of like a hot springs, but a little bit
Okay.
different. Not like the hot springs in like Iceland or something. It was
Yeah.
kind of these baths that are warm, pretty much, and of different degrees. So there's some that are colder, some that are hotter, and you can kind of go around to find the ones that are, the temperature that you like. And you can also go inside. There's all these different pools that they have, different sizes, different temperatures, that kind of thing. And it was just a really cool experience to go there. I had never known that they were there my first trip, and so it was really cool. But the other thing about Budapest that I also really liked was the ruin bars, and that I had gone to the ruin bar my first time. I actually enjoyed it more my first time than my second time. But the ruin bar it's a must stop place if you go to Budapest, because it's this big bar that feels like it's 50 different bars in one. And so you go upstairs, you go into different rooms. Different rooms have different atmospheres, different ambiance. Some people are sitting all down on these like chairs, kind of, I don't know what they're doing in there. I would like to speculate, but um, they are, hanging out, chilling. Then there's some
Having
of the
fun.
bars where, people are just getting drinks. But there's a different vibe, different kind of music going on in the different rooms that you're in. So it's kind of like a tour of multiple places in one. And it's just a cool experience to go to. I definitely felt a lot older on this trip than when I went the first time about 4 or 5 years ago. I felt my
Okay.
age more, but there's people of all ages that go there because it's kind of an iconic place that you go to when you go to Budapest.
Yeah, and there's the little food alley too, that we found on the way back.
Yeah, a little
Great
alley where
food.
there's like a food court with all kinds of food, really
Mm,
good. So if you get a
so
chance,
good.
right next to the ruin bars, there's this nice little food court area that's looks all hip and trendy, but has really good food, all different kinds that you can think of.
I'm so glad that Eryka keeps going back to the most important thing about travel, which is never eating.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes, very important.
So, we're in Budapest. What did you eat that you loved?
I really liked a lot of the goulash. So I did this weird thing where the different countries that we went to, I tried to have
Yeah.
goulash in every country because in the United States, goulash is completely different than what it is in
Yeah.
Europe. And so
Mm,
I'm used to like the macaroni noodles with the kidney beans and the ground
Yes.
beef and like tomato sauce. And that's goulash in the US. And it's so much more in Europe. So I had
mm.
goulash in Prague. I had it in Vienna. I had it in Budapest. And
So who did the best
my
goulash?
favorite goulash was this place in Prague. We went on a tour and they were
Yeah.
like, we're going to go to this place in the city center by where the astronomical clock is. And I just ordered it, not really having high expectations. It was so good. And unfortunately, it set the bar because then when I had it in every other country, it just wasn't quite as good as that first place in Prague, even though I don't think it's native to Prague. If I remember correctly, I feel like the goulash is native to, I don't know, maybe Budapest somewhere. I'm not sure. I can't remember. Don't quote me on that, but it was my favorite.
I feel like it might be one of those things like, there's all the different countries that fight over who invented
Hmm.
baklava.
Hmm.
It's probably
Probably,
similar,
yeah. I could see that.
but Prague's doing it right.
Prague was doing it right. Prague got quite a few things right on the food front.
How were your experiences in Vienna different from the other places that you went?
Hmm. Vienna was very music oriented because it's very known
Okay.
for music. you think of like the Vienna Boys Choir, and you think of,
Mhm.
just, we actually went to a music museum, and it was a
Oh,
lot of fun, wasn't it?
It was so
Yeah,
cool.
it was. I mean, all the classical, I learned a lot. All the big composers were featured there. You could see
Hmm.
like the Mozarts and the Beethovens and all the different periods of music over the years. And there was something about Vienna that had this kind of formal vibe to it. Like it almost felt more, if I were a royal, or if I were, 100 years ago or
Yeah.
200 years ago, I feel like Vienna would have been the place where I would have had to be like on point with my dress, and with
oh.
it just felt more kind of formal and not really classy, but just I felt it had a different vibe than some of the other
It was
places.
ritzy,
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
like ritzy and posh. And we even went to the castle, right? Didn't we go to
Schönbrunn
the
Castle.
castle?
Mhm.
Yeah, and beautiful.
Yes. Oh,
Like
so gorgeous
Diana said that she's gonna rent a place because I think they open it up. There's a long waiting list for it,
for
but
these apartments where you
um,
can live in the
yeah,
palace.
Oh, you can live in the palace.
yes.
I was going to
And
ask
this
if
is
there
the
was just
summer
a
palace,
restaurant in it. I didn't know you
not
could
even
live in it.
like this isn't even the main palace. This is the summer
The
palace.
summer palace. And it's
Yeah.
modeled after Versailles. So,
Oh,
yeah, so
wow.
there were, and it's
Yeah.
interesting because at the same time, Sophia was in Paris and was sending us pictures of
Hmm.
Versailles, and we're going to this palace in Vienna. I think it was Schönbrunn. I'm probably just not
Schönbrunn,
pronouncing it
I think.
correctly, but those who know. And the gardens were beautiful. There were so many
Hmm.
places to take amazing photographs. The rose gardens, the rose walls.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. And I got a lot of souvenirs there as well. And we actually went through and toured the palace. So we got to see kind of how the royals lived. And yeah,
Hmm.
it's very extravagant. The, queen had like 14 children, or a lot of children. I can't remember how many, but as was the custom, she had quite a few, and you could see the different bedrooms and how they lived, and it was just very regal.
So along the way, are you getting like tour guide stuff? Oh, and every child had their own nanny. Like, I'm just trying to envision this as a royal. I feel like I would have to be like Angelina Jolie, and every child has someone assigned to them so that it's manageable in
I don't
any
know how
way.
they did that. I feel like the
Yeah.
children were all married off. If I remember correctly, the queen did a very good job of. So apparently, her husband was very devoted to her, but he also had like a whole bunch of kids with other women while they were married. But I guess he really loved her. And so he still had a whole bunch of kids with her also. But she was very, and she loved him very much, and was very strategic about who she married her offspring off to. So, it seemed like she was kind of the brains in that relationship. Does that sound about
I
right? I'm
love to
like,
hear
do I
that.
remember the history correct?
Yeah, no, sounds
Yeah.
right. Sorry.
So, what are some of the hidden gems or lesser known attractions that you discovered in Prague?
I think in Prague, it kind of reminds me of the first restaurant that we went to. I forget the name of it, but it was
Laguerre.
so good. I knew you would
Later.
remember.
Laguerre. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it was like
Is it G? Oh,
Legare.
L. Okay.
Lagarde,
Okay.
Laguerre. All I know is it was a French restaurant, and it was
It was
on point. Best French onion soup I have ever had in my entire life. I had there. I have a picture of it, which I will be happy to share. I mean, cheese on cheese on cheese. Just lifting my spoon, cheese on cheese on cheese. It was so good. I had the snails and had air, because snails are
hmm
all the rage there. They're actually really good and
Oh,
very high in protein. And
and it was my first time
yes,
trying it too. So,
you tried? No, you didn't.
uh-huh.
Eryka, who had to have all the heads cut off of her shrimp for her.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. What
And it
did
was
you think of snails,
delicious. It
Eryka?
was really good.
yeah.
And yeah,
I'm proud of you.
thank you.
Yeah, when we were in Thailand, she was not doing. I don't blame her.
I was
I
not
don't
about
like the
that.
head on the shrimp either. But at this restaurant, I did get her to try snails, which was great. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but that first restaurant, and we found it by accident. We were just looking for a place.
Yeah.
I use Yelp a lot when I travel, and it steers me right most of the time. And we randomly
Mm-hmm.
found that place. We were looking for a different restaurant, stumbled upon that French restaurant. It was so good. I'm so glad we did. And then,
Yeah.
and here's the weird thing, I was really mean to Prague when I was there. And
She was.
I feel
She's not
badly.
lying.
I feel badly about it. I don't know what it was. I had wanted to go to Prague for so long. And then I got to Prague, and at first I was like, "Ugh, this is it." And then we went to Prague and for like 3 nights. And then we went to Vienna and then Budapest and then Bratislava and came back to Prague and stayed there for another night and flew back out of Prague to Iceland. And so when I was in Prague, at first I think it was just I was jet lagged, I was tired, and I was like, "Oh, this is it. This is, you know, and then just looking back and going over the pictures of like the Charles Bridge and all
Yeah.
of the different sites, like we did quite a few tours while we were in Prague.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I actually really loved Prague. The food was really good, and Eryka kept being like, "Ugh, I just, I love all the places. Why are you being so negative about this?" And I'm like, I don't really know. I think I'm just grumpy because I haven't
Yeah.
slept. Because when I think of it now, I loved Prague. It's so beautiful, so picturesque, and looking at we have just beautiful photos from all over Prague. We did a tour and got to see a lot of the sites, the Jewish section of the city, got to learn a lot about the history. We went to the Kafka Museum, which was really
That was
cool.
fun. Yeah.
And we went to the Lenin Wall, John Lennon Wall. We got some pictures there. And the other fun thing we did in Prague, we went to this medieval dinner.
Oh, that
Like,
was Prague. That was
okay,
so
it's giving
fun.
medieval times. What is a medieval
Yeah, it
dinner?
was like, so when you go, the whole knights jousting type medieval type thing. It
Yes.
was one of those dinners where they like give you the huge turkey leg and everything.
So it was really
Yes,
like
they
medieval
had people
times.
fake
Oh
kind
yeah.
of sword fighting. They had belly dancers and they had all of this. And
Mm-hmm.
we were seated at a table with these
Fire
guests from
throwers.
like from Bucharest. They were from
Romania.
Romania and Italy. And so we were at this like
Yeah.
multicultural table and went to this medieval dinner. It was so much fun. And I think Prague just had so many gems just all over, just the different things that
Yeah.
we did. We went to this really cool bookstore in Prague that we found. They sell gingerbread as like a thing in Prague. So we bought gingerbread. We went
Mm-hmm.
to, I mentioned the Kafka Museum. We did, what else did we do there? The tour, we saw the clock. There's this
Yeah.
like astronomical clock that's
Yep.
really famous there. So it was fun. We actually did quite a bit in Prague, and I would definitely go back there again.
So I have a cousin who is obsessed with medieval
Hmm.
times here in the States. I feel like it probably is a more authentic experience, which is ridiculous. But because you're in Europe, where like
Mm-hmm.
these things actually took place, I just think it's so funny that you guys went and did that. I've never been.
Hmm.
I've never been. I would love to go to one, but I want to go to one in Europe. I don't want to go to one here.
Oh no, yeah,
Yeah,
It's
I've
not
never been to one
it's
in the
not
I
safe.
US,
never
so
have either.
I
I've
can't
wanted to
compare it,
go to
but
different ones, but yeah, no, go to the one in
yeah,
Prague. It was so much fun. It really was. They
it
had the
was so
fire
good.
breathe, like the everything. Very medieval times, and they really set the whole atmosphere, the ambiance, even the utensils and stuff that we used at the table were all
Mm-hmm.
very kind of medieval, like the type of food
Yeah.
that we had. It was like a multi-course meal, and so we got the food that was very medieval times. So, and we got to meet some really cool people that were there from other
Mhm.
countries. So, highly recommend.
Amazing. Yeah, I don't want the Americanized chimichanga version. I want the
Yeah,
real
yeah.
deal. So, you guys talked about spur of the moment getting on trains. You talked about picking up hotels sort of along the way and figuring it out as you go. Were there any language barrier issues with that? I know that like when I was in Taipei, getting on the train was a nightmare. I could not figure out where I was going. I couldn't figure out how to buy, tickets. Like it was crazy. Did you have any language barrier experiences there?
Not really.
I think, yeah, we haven't really. Sorry. One of the things that comes to mind is I think I forgot where we were, maybe Budapest, and we were trying to get the train, the one that we missed.
Oh, yeah.
And we couldn't find anyone that worked there that spoke English. We couldn't figure out the whole ticket
Hmm.
machine. And so instead of taking the train with all of our suitcases, we found a private car
Hmm.
that
Oh, nice.
would, pick us up and drop us off. I think it was from Budapest to
Bratislava, it
Bratislava.
was. And
Yeah.
we liked it so
Yeah.
much that we
And
actually took a private car from Bratislava to Prague instead of taking a
we
train the
did,
next time. It was really
and
nice.
it was great.
Yeah, it's
Highly
pricey. It's
recommend,
pricey, but
but worth
definitely it
it.
brings you right to your destination. The drivers are cool. They'll take you to different places to stop
Hmm.
off. I had more language barriers, I think, when we went in to go like buy food or different things in the
Yeah.
gas stations because their food is so different. Their
Yeah.
chocolates, their candies, their, all of the junk food items were all very different than what you're used to. And
And they're more in rural areas
mhm,
too, so the people that work there don't really speak English at all.
mhm.
Mm.
There was one other place we were headed to Bratislava and were we headed out of Bratislava? I think I can't remember which one, but we stopped at this place. We were supposed to go to
Oh
a
yeah.
place where
We
there's
were
like a
going to Prague.
yes, we were going to Prague and there
I
was a
saw the
place where
project.
there's what was it like made out of bones?
Yeah, it was like a Gothic church
Mhm.
made out of bones.
Oh,
Mhm.
wow.
Yeah, that um, we had the private driver,
Yeah.
so that you
Yeah.
could do excursions while you're going from point A to point B. So we picked one that was one of them, um, and we kind of missed the church part of the tour because we ate
We went
at
to eat
this
first because as
restaurant.
we mentioned earlier,
Yeah, we were
priorities.
so hungry,
So we
you
went to eat
know.
first and we found this really cool, again, found it through Yelp, this really cool kind of off the beaten path restaurant. And no one there spoke
Hmm.
English and you could tell it was a total local place. So we walked in and
Yeah.
everyone just kind of looked at us like, who are
Stared at us the
you?
whole
How did you
time.
find this place? Why are you here? And we were just kind of like, So then we got the menu. It was all in whatever language. What was it? We were in Slovakia. So it was Czech? No,
Were
it
we?
was no
No.
Slovak.
I
Wasn't
think
it?
we were in Prague.
We weren't
Well,
in Prague
not,
yet.
no, we weren't in Prague yet. Oh, yeah.
Whatever language they speak there, I feel like
Where?
I'm
I
doing
don't
them an
even know.
injustice and I apologize if any of them see this podcast. But the menu
Oh,
was not in English. So we used our
funny.
phone on the Google Translate app. You can actually hover your phone over. And I didn't even know this. Erica showed me this while we were eating
Yeah.
there. And I've used it since. But you can like hover your phone over a picture or words and it will automatically translate for you. And so we used that and we were able to order. And then I ordered their local beer and there was like a group of these older men that were kind of sitting by us, kind of stealing these like furtive glances over our way, kind of like, what are they doing? And when we were getting ready to leave, I still had some of my beer, and the guys were all looking at me, and I was like, I'm going to finish this. And I like chugged my beer down, and they were like, yes, yes. And I was like, yay, I finally won you guys over right when I'm leaving. They were all like, because I made a couple comments or something like that. And then they were all like, because I get along with older people. I was really close to my grandparents. And so I feel like they were really happy to see me chug down that last of my beer. And
Yeah.
kind of won them over in the end before we had to move on. But yeah, there's, you know, other than that, I mean, they didn't really speak much English, but we didn't have too much trouble throughout the rest of the trip.
Mhm.
Was that a goulash stop?
They didn't have goulash there,
Oh,
but it
okay.
was like
Okay.
some local traditional dish that you wouldn't normally find. And so that's why I wanted to eat it.
Yeah. Did you
I
take a
did take
picture?
a picture. I did.
Okay.
I took
Just
pictures
checking.
of all this stuff. Yes.
You know how I am about pictures
Oh,
of food.
yeah.
It's ridiculous. How did you plan your itinerary for visiting all of these different countries? Like logistics are always difficult. Everybody knows this is not my area of expertise. So what advice would you have to offer to people? Maybe this is their first multi-country trip they've ever
hmm
taken. What should they know? What do you wish
hmm
you had known?
The way we did it, I think we kind of had lists of where we each wanted to go in each country. And we were kind of like, okay, these are the 2 or 3 things I really want to do while I'm here. And we
Mhm.
both kind of compared notes. Some of them were the same and some were different. And the other thing, too, you also have to be conscious of as a traveler is Eryka and I had never been on, we had been to Thailand together, but it was just the two of us. So we had to learn each other's kind of patterns. Like I'm a night owl and Eryka is not, right? And like
Mhm.
I sometimes like to plan things and Eryka's kind of like I want to enjoy my coffee and like you know, relax and do different. So we had to find a rhythm throughout this trip, which was the other kind of
Mm,
background thing going on. And so when we planned, it was kind of like how much of the trip do we want to actually do tours? Because we did a tour in Prague and it was like 6 hours and it was exhausting. Did we see all the sights? Yes, we did. And that was great. But it was really, we were tired. It was hot. Like we were like, we don't want to do this in every
It was so
country.
hot.
So it was trial and error, I think. But we
Yeah.
we had we had done some research, made lists, saw like Instagram and TikTok videos of different places, and that's how we found them. And then we kind of said, okay, these are the places I want to see. This is what I want to see. How can we map this into our time here?
yeah, that's actually, I think that's why me and Erica vibe so much. So when we went on the trip, because we were both
Yeah, that's
like,
so true.
we were the first ones awake
Yeah.
and just bored and like hungry.
Go
So we
looking for
always wanted to go
food.
find breakfast and like, there was nobody else conscious yet. Everybody else had been up drinking until like 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And we were like,
I
well,
was one of those people up
Let's
drinking till
go.
3 in the morning.
Yeah.
How about you, Erica? Is what tips would you offer to someone who was sort of embarking on this for the first time, this multi stop
Mm, yeah.
extravaganza of a vacation?
I wouldn't do it the way that we did it just because, like, it's not like we knew what we were doing, but we kind of had an idea. And we're okay with kind of going with the flow, waiting like last minute to do things. And I know a lot of people like to know every minute of every day what they're going to do, especially if they're in a different country that they've never been before. I think for any first timer, maybe going abroad is um, not a travel agent, but they have like travel groups, I think, or travel guides that will go with you through Europe to show you where to go. I think those might be helpful for those that are afraid to go by themselves, those that are more courageous. I mean, I think if you book your flight, know what countries you want to go to, you book your train tickets, your hotel, or whatever Airbnb, whatever it is, I think you'll be fine because there's just so much to do. And we use what is it, Viator,
Yeah,
um, for a lot
excursions.
of our excursions.
What is
So
that? Is that an
It's
app?
an app,
yeah.
Biator, and it's through
Mm,
TripAdvisor. So I use
Okay.
TripAdvisor a lot to find out, rankings of different ratings of hotels and different things. But they have an app where you can book different excursions through there. And
yeah.
Eryka introduced me to the app, and I use it everywhere now.
Yeah. Yeah. So like our whole Renaissance dinner found it on
Yeah.
there, so and that was like the night before
Hmm.
too. So I think if you're like a first timer, you could just, go through, look to see what's popular or what you want to do and, book and have everything
Hmm.
scheduled. But I wouldn't recommend what we did. But I think for us it was
Yeah.
fine. And for anyone that travels a lot, it would be completely fine. But for first timers, yeah.
I think we
They might not be as
Yeah, I
comfortable.
think we
Yeah.
kind of came into it because Erica and I are both very well traveled people. So we kind of
Yeah.
feel, we don't feel maybe the same anxiety right away of like being in a new country. And so I think we were more comfortable to kind of wing things a little bit. Some people really like to agendize their vacations, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just say that, when you're
Mm-mm.
planning a trip, take into consideration how tired you might end up being because I know that I can't go as hard as I did 10 years ago. And so for me, if I'm on a 6-hour walking tour, that plays into how I'm going to feel that evening. That, takes a lot of energy out of me. It affects my mood, a lot of those kinds of things that you just kind of want to think about before you book 50 million excursions. But it is a good thing too if you are going to use an app like Viator, um, to kind of look somewhat in advance because some tours are only scheduled on certain days, and if you miss it, you miss it. Or some
Mm-hmm.
tours only happen if they have enough people that book them. And so, you want to try to do things in advance that way if you can, just for planning purposes. But it's good just to also, I mean, do your social media research too. If you see really cool places, I saw cool places on Instagram. Erica saw cool places on TikTok
Mm-hmm.
where we were like, ooh, we want to try this. And then we looked it up. So this trip was definitely less planned than other trips that I've been on. But I think because we travel so much, we're a bit more flexible and agile, like about, what we're going to do and more comfortable with that than some people might be as first time travelers or solo travelers.
Now, this is one of many of your excursions into Europe. What has your overall experience been, or has it been different in different places traveling abroad as a woman of color?
There's always that pause.
I
Mhm.
know.
I like traveling abroad as a woman of color. I always feel like I want to live in the places that I go to. I don't feel much of a difference when I'm out of the country, at least in Europe where we were. I don't feel like I get really treated differently, that people are staring at me necessarily. But I also have to say that my experience is different as a light skinned woman of color than as a dark skinned
Yep.
woman of color.
Mhm.
Because I know that I've seen experiences where some people who are darker skinned get where people want to take photos with them, or they're looking at them, or they're like, oh, your hair's in an afro, that's so cool, let me
Yeah.
take a photo,
Touch it.
yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't really get that. I feel like we were pretty much left alone. It's not like I didn't
Yeah.
feel where either like, oh my gosh, all the men are attracted to me because I'm a woman of color, or where I felt like all the people were, staring at me, or whatever the case might be. It just felt kind of like going on vacation. And
Mhm.
I feel, and I think we've even raised this on a previous podcast, but I actually feel more other treatment as a woman of color traveling in the US to some of the states I've been to than I do in Europe.
It's fun because as you were talking, I was thinking of Missouri.
Mm.
As you know, I'm like, I'm asking this question because potentially there are viewers who have some anxiety about going certain places based on, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be treated right there. You know, what's the first question anybody asks you after you, oh, how'd they treat
Hmm.
you? How'd they treat you? I mean,
Mhm.
you go out of your house and come back in and you see somebody you haven't seen in a while. How are they
Yeah.
treating you?
Yeah.
Like, you know, present tense in general, how's it
Hmm.
going? So, you know, I'm kind of asking that question to maybe alleviate some concerns or at least give a perspective on, I did it. This is what my experience was as a light-skinned woman of color. This is, you know, what it
Hmm.
was like for me. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Um, did you face any challenges navigating transportation or getting around? I know you guys said you tried the train. The train was a little bit of a struggle. You got the private car. Was it pretty much smooth sailing though across the board?
Yeah, we were able to take Ubers pretty much most of the cities that we were
Mhm.
in, or cabs. And we definitely, other than that one train fiasco in Budapest, once we found the private cars, I think we're kind of pros now, Erica. I feel like we could just get around
Yeah, I
wherever
think
at this point.
so.
Um,
Yeah, and if they don't have Uber in that country, they probably have a
oh
substitute,
yeah,
like a different app that's just
Bolt
like
or
Uber.
something.
Yeah.
How do you find it? How do you find out?
Google.
I just Googled. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Good
That's
old
That's
how we
Google.
found a hold.
It's
Yeah.
like it's almost like, how did people do things before we had these
No
conveniences?
idea.
I am old enough to remember
I
MapQuest.
remember
And
Yeah.
MapQuest.
I would not have traveled without a lot of these amenities. I don't think
Mm,
I could
I
have
still
done it,
remember
you
those like
know.
portable uh like navigational systems that you could, like the Tom
Yes.
Toms or whatever they were called, or different
Yes,
things
the
that you
Tom
could put in your
Toms.
car. It's so crazy how it's like everything is in our phone now.
it is.
Like that's yeah.
Yeah.
I was just watching with my 9-year-old I was watching Parents Just Don't Understand, the Will Smith
Uh-huh.
video from back in the
Yeah.
day with her, and he was on a car phone. And it had like
My
the big cords, the
gosh.
big spiral
Yes.
cord, and she's like, "What is that?" And I was like, you know, he's grown up now, and you know, he's got kids of his own who are also grown up. Like he's older than me, and she goes, "He's older than you." That blew my mind.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you for
Mhm.
that. So, how has traveling to all of the countries that you went to on this particular trip impacted your perspective on different cultures and the world in general? And I think every trip kind of does that in its own unique way. Did you learn a particular lesson or have a particular sort of awakening from this specific trip?
I think for me, it made me want to explore the US more because
Mm.
just to see how easy it was going from country to country, that's how I think it kind of made me feel like I was taking the US and how we travel between our states for granted. And it just made me want to explore, the country that I'm from even more. And I think also comparing it, like going from country to country, they have their own different cultures. The US is the same way. We have, the Southern culture is different from like New England, right? So just kind of taking those things into consideration when I think about where I live and how like my friends that are international, they ask me about the US and how I, communicate what it's like living in the US to them as well.
Yeah. I think for me, this is in a similar vein to what Erica was just saying, but I notice that I behave differently in other countries than I do in the US. And I don't mean necessarily like, oh, I party so much more when I'm in another country or anything like that. I just mean certain day to day things. Like, for example, when I'm in another country and I need to go somewhere, I will look on my phone and see how far away it is. And I'm like, oh, it's 25 minutes away. We can walk. If I'm in the US, I'm like 25 minutes. I'm getting an Uber. For some reason, when I'm at home, I'm like, no, I'm not walking that far. Whereas like when I'm out of the country, I can get 25,000 steps in a day because I'm walking everywhere, right? And like even how they get their groceries, they're not, at home, I'm trying to get groceries for as long as possible until the next time I have to go back again and until my staples run out. Whereas like there, people will go and get groceries every day, like have fresh food, go to the market every day, that kind of thing. So I think I'm less lazy in other countries, at least from my like previous couple trips that I just returned from. And I've noticed that I don't, for some reason, I'm like, there's no reason why I can't adopt this attitude in the United States. And along with what Eryka said, I've started thinking about, DC is a tourist destination for so many people. And a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm coming to DC. I'm going to come visit you. Like, can you host me? I'm like, I don't even know where to take you out here. Honestly, I'm literally here because they have 3 airports and I can travel in and out how it goes. Whereas
Yeah.
when I lived in Phoenix, for example, I could take people all over the place to different restaurants. I knew where everything was. I drove around. I got rid of my car a few years after I moved to DC. And so I realized I'm like, I haven't even explored the city that I'm in a way. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've taken a mindset of I want to be a tourist in my own city. And since then, and from these trips, I have explored and gone more places in DC than probably what I had done my other years combined. I mean, just this
Wow.
past weekend,
Mm-hmm.
I went to a brunch in an igloo. I went to a comedy show. I went to a Prince concert, all of these different places that I went to in like 2 days.
I assume it was like a tribute
Yes, it
band.
was a tribute band. It was the 40th anniversary of Purple Rain.
Oh.
um,
Oh,
but
snap. I'm
yeah,
sorry I missed
yeah.
it.
So, but things like that where it's encouraged me to be a tourist in my own city because there's so many things that you can do to explore at home without having to get on a plane and leave the country.
It's funny you say that. Like, I've been here a year and a half and I probably could show you some stuff
Oh,
because I feel like a tourist
oh
here
yeah.
still. Like, I'll get on a scooter and go scoot down to the White House with the 9-year-old on a Saturday morning. Or, my mom came to visit. I took her to Hillwood. Have you ever heard
No.
of Hillwood?
No.
Exactly. We have a house here that was built by the post-serial heiress. It is
Wow.
massive. The grounds are massive. The gardens are massive. You can get alcoholic
Ooh.
slushies and wander the grounds. And she was married 4 times. One of her husbands was the ambassador to Russia during the time that Russia was like purging itself of all of its religious
Okay.
artifacts. So she was finding like, the royal glassware and plates and religious artifacts in junk shops. And she was just like hoarding it and bringing it all back. So this house
Oh my
is
gosh.
full of this like priceless Russian, like the royal pieces of art are just in her
Mm-hmm.
home. And you can go see it here in DC,
Wow. Why
you
have you not
know.
taken
I know.
us?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
Jeez.
Because it's look, we're going in the
I
summer.
know
We're
we
going in the
we
summer.
like to meet up with Sophia because we go to restaurants that we've
Yeah.
never been to. We get to explore areas that we haven't seen, different neighborhoods. So definitely encouraged me to be a tourist in my city. And I would encourage those of you who are listening to think about your city as if it were a country that you had never been to before. What are some of the tourist spots that people go to that you're like, I live in New York. I don't need to go see the Statue of Liberty, or,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I live here. Go explore the neighborhoods, see what's going on, go to the festivals, the farmers markets, the music festivals, the concerts, all of those things. They're all there and you don't have to leave your country to do that.
One of the coolest things I think I've done here was I was like a school trip
Hmm.
chaperone. So I do it once a year. That's all you're getting out of me. I will go to it once because it is like herding squirrels because we're taking all these kids in the
Hmm.
subway, which is nuts.
Oh
But
no.
we went to the Library of
Ooh.
Congress and I'd never been there before. And it was so cool. It's like this beautiful building inside. There's like all of these beautiful paintings and, carvings and sculptures and all of this, it's so stunning in there. While we were there, there was literally an engaged couple taking their engagement photos in
Oh.
there and their clothing for the shoot was clearly handmade to match the colors inside the
Oh,
building.
wow.
No,
Like
jeez.
it was intense. But yeah, there's so much cool stuff here. So we just got to make more time and go do
Yes.
it.
Let's be tourists this
Hmm.
summer.
Yes.
All right. Is there anything that we want to make sure that we touch on with regard to any of these cities or travel in Europe or multi-country travel
Yes.
that we don't want to miss out on before
I
we?
think two things. One, Bratislava is a good place to go visit without sounding as
Oh,
generic as
okay.
possible because it's the capital of Slovakia. It's a hidden gem and it's beautiful. Lots of restaurants. We've got lots of pictures of Bratislava. But if you happen to be out that way, take a stop in Bratislava. You don't need to be there for a long time. 1 or 2 days is fine. Those in Bratislava might be offended by that and say, no, you could be here for a full week. And if that's the case, go for it. But just, I would just encourage people, if you're out that way, to go to Bratislava. And then Iceland is a
Hmm.
place where we didn't talk much about this time, but I've been to Iceland before. We did go to the Sky Lagoon. Everyone
Okay.
always hears of the Blue Lagoon in Iceland, which I've been to, which is amazing and fabulous. But there's also the Sky Lagoon, which is amazing. It's these other kind of the thermal baths that you can go in, and we did like a 7 step ritual while we were there. You
Hmm.
can
Oh,
order drinks, and it's beautiful. It overlooks kind of the ocean, and so the views are great. We'll share some photos, but Iceland is near and dear to my heart. I love the Rainbow Road. I love the American Bar there. Shout out to Sylvia and all of
Hmm.
our friends at the American Bar. And really great restaurants, a really great food scene in
Hmm.
Iceland. It is very expensive. I will tell you, Iceland is not a cheap place. It is very expensive. Think about it. It's an island, basically. So you have to import everything. So things are not cheap there. But we went to this like fish market restaurant that was so good. We went to a really
So
good
good.
Italian restaurant that's right next to the fish market restaurant. Reykjavik Kitchen is another good restaurant I've been to that's great there. So if you get a chance, I would make sure to take advantage of a layover if you happen to fly Iceland Air. Use that 7 days. You don't have to use all seven. You could go 2 days, 1 day, 3 days, but you get a free layover to stop in Reykjavik and explore. So if you fly Iceland Air, take advantage of that.
I need to figure that out. Like when we went to Paris, we were there for like 10 minutes. Like literally we were like running through the airport trying to get to the other gate so that we could get back out. But I'm super curious about what's going on. What is a Rainbow Road? What is that?
It's a street that literally looks like it's painted like a rainbow,
Wow.
and it's beautiful. And we've got photos of that too. I think Eryka took
Yeah.
some. I might
Yeah.
have some for my
Hmm.
first trip there. But it's on the main street in Reykjavik, the main kind of thoroughfare. What's it called?
Mhm.
Lagavegar or something, I think
Lagavir.
it's called. I can't pronounce
Lagavir.
it.
Yeah. I can't either.
No. It reminds me, Sophia would love it though, because Sophia does
Yeah.
the Rainbow House stories, right?
I do. That's
Hmm.
why I was like, the Rainbow
Yes,
what?
Yeah.
yes. I could totally see Sophia doing something there on the rainbow. I call it the Rainbow Road. I don't know if it has a different name, but
Yeah.
we'll show you photos. Um,
Yeah. And there's lots of little shops
mhm.
and restaurants and pubs and
Yep.
whatnot.
Very cool.
Yeah. A must
Anything
see.
else from you, Miss Erica?
Um, yeah, I think, when you're traveling, kind of like what Diana was saying, leave room for relaxing because even we went to 5 countries in 2 weeks, which, like, looking back at it, we were always on the move.
Mm,
Like, there was like hardly any downtime. And if we were to have, planned everything in advance, we probably would have made it to half of the things that we planned just because we were just so tired
yeah.
and needed to like sleep or eat or like,
Decompress.
it, yeah, it just takes so much out of you. So I think But all in all, I wouldn't change a thing.
Mhm.
Everything was so gorgeous. We went at the perfect time
Yeah,
in the season, I think, and can't wait to go
I
back.
know. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies, for sharing all of your experiences with me. Someday I'm going to get there. Not today, but I'm excited and I'm glad I have a little bit more information going into it. Thank you all again for joining us for this episode of the Cosmopolite Collective. We hope to see you again soon.
Sounds
Right.
good. Bye, everyone.